Welcome back. You're watching Newsx. My name is Vineet. 10th November 2025 is etched into the memory of India as a dark day. It was this day when Dr. Umar Un Nabi, a 29-year-old doctor who worked as an assistant professor of medicine, decided to carry on with a suicide bomb attack that killed 14 people and injured 32. What unfolded was a series of revelations, including a massive white-collar terror module, majorly centered at the Al Falah University in Faridabad. But the Al Falah University is not where it started. It all started back in Kashmir, where these Dr. Evils were educated. Let's start with Dr. Umar Un Nabi. He studied at GMC Srinagar, where he was an MBBS topper. He met Muzammil Shakil there, the same Dr. Muzammil who was found hiding 360 kilograms of ammonium nitrate in Faridabad. Umar then went on to complete his post-graduation from GMC Anantnag, where he not only spread propaganda and recruited impressionable young minds, but also met Dr. Adil, the same man who was caught putting up Jaish-e-Mohammed posters in Srinagar, the same man from whose locker at GMC Anantnag police found one AK-47 rifle and 60 magazines along with ammunition. So what really happened in these government medical colleges is the big question. Why was Dr. Adil allowed to keep weapons in a locker he was no longer associated with? We'll talk about that with our guest. Joining us on the show at this point in time is Major General G.G. Dwivedi, a global and strategic defense expert, Mr. R.V.S. Mani, former Under Secretary, Ministry of Home Affairs, and last but not the least, Padma Shri Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, Chairman of Nephron Clinic, is also joining us on the broadcast. Dr. Bagai, I'll begin with you. Well, this is a legal terminology that I'm using, but when you have a doctor committing a white-collar crime, and that too something that pertains to terrorism, it does send shivers down your spine. Doctors, the oath that they take, are usually given the onus of protecting life. Here you have someone who's educated, speaks English like any urbane metropolis citizen, and goes on to conduct these horrific crimes as a doctor. Is this a mortifying situation for the medical fraternity at this point in time in India?
Good evening. I think it's a wake-up call, and just allow me a couple of minutes because I have some clear thoughts on this.
Sure, sir. Take your time.
It's absolutely shameful to even associate with these kind of people who call themselves as doctors. Needless to say, they will be restricted from the roles of the medical professional fraternity altogether for life. But if you look at the overall scenario, it has clear footprints and a clear DNA pattern of Pakistan-sponsored terror organizations. 32 cars, 3 have been located, 1 was busted in the blast. 4 doctors have been caught. 1 of them has been dead, and 15 have gone missing. So very clearly there has been a huge lapse in the part of this terror medical college. I won't call it an educational college at all. It's a mindset we are fighting now. This is the invisible enemy within our own parameters. It's a virtual war. So our strategy, our surveillance, our scrutiny must be many yards ahead of their demented delusional mindsets. Now, if you look at India, we have 53,000 plus colleges. In terms of medicine, we have 820 medical colleges. Now, we need to look at how each staff is being recruited. What is the background check? One of the doctors was actually sacked from GNK for anti-national activities, and this particular person found salvage in this terror university and medical college. So overall, I think apart from a very detailed background check on each and every person coming into the medical colleges or any other college for that matter, we need now in these educational institutions a chief vigilance officer. We need a human intelligence officer. The patterns, mindsets, movements of these people can be tracked even before they start planning it. How can a doctor or a paramedic keep an assault rifle in the locker? This is absolutely shocking. How can cars with ammunition be driven into the compounds of these kind of universities? So we need to use technology to the fore. We need a complete review on the social media, all trackable and non-trackable platforms, And we need to be tracking these people's movements overall as a policy. This is a complete failure of local security. This has become a free for all. And apart from them being non doctors, I will say, this kind of thing is not driven now by poverty or illiteracy. Again, I'm coming to the fact that this is a mindset war we are fighting with these rascals. I'm absolutely sure if we get our homework right, our strategy right, we'll be able to kill them in their tracks. Over to you.
All right, Jal Divedi. Once again, the sanctity of this profession, the sanctity of the noble task which is associated with a doctor has completely been corrupted here. It's completely been given a shape and a form which will make it hard for a number of people to trust doctors. But at the same time, this has also exposed a huge lacuna in the way agencies operate, in the way agencies conduct profiling, and in the way our security apparatus is positioned at this point in time. I keep saying that the FBI and the CIA and other agencies, even Mossad, they came up with a system where they would profile criminals and they would know beforehand as to who is likely to commit what based on their psychological and criminal profile. This case has thrown off that theory. This case has thrown off that practicality. Do you think there is a point here now where we have to start from scratch?
Well, Vineet, I think what we are seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. And having been in the armed forces for 38 years and now in the academia for last about 15 years, I can give you a bifocal view. Firstly, it's not terrorism, it's not cross-border terrorism. I have been repeating since my days as commander in the valley that this is a Pak-sponsored proxy war. And before it came to Valley, it was in Punjab, where again I was a company commander. The point is that Pakistan proxy war is the national policy and they will pursue it in different forms. And now it has come as a white collar modules and where the higher institutions of learning are now the nurseries. No more the madrasas or those illiterate and the young people who are poor, poverty is written. Today we have people who are very highly qualified. So what we are seeing is the new phase of the proxy war. The secondly, institutions, especially the technical institutions like medical school, colleges, or tomorrow you will find some engineering and the other higher learning institution technical background. Now they are the people who are now radicalized and radicalized to carry out very sophisticated form of proxy war. And as a professor, when you are in the class, you can always figure out some odd people who behave differently, whose mindset is a little different. Now is the challenge for the institutions to keep a very close eye. And as Dr. Sanjeev mentioned, that we got to have a very formal system of vigilance where we can track the people before actually they can undertake hostile act. That means we got to have a scanner system working where we can single these people out. And the second point is the money trail, because after all, they may be qualified, but money lure is always there. It's not a person who is earning well, cannot be trapped. And how the money laundering has taken place. And the private institutions, they raise funds in a very, very dubious manner. And their funding also need to be tracked. And the third point which I like to figure out, please remember, that this is a national war. It has to be fought on all fronts. It has to be fought on the borders. It has to be fought on the hinterland. It has to be fought in the institutions. Therefore, I think we need a whole of nation approach and not just to work in silos. So I think we need to have a very clear-cut anti-proxy war doctrine. We got to have very clear-cut, methods of dealing, and we need to put all our heads together, because this menace is not only now restricted to Kashmir. Only some time back I was covering Bangladesh, where actually I fought the war and part of the liberation of Bangladesh. We are opening a new front there. And I tell you that that front is going to be far more dangerous than what you have been facing now. Because here we could identify people, there it will be very difficult to identify, and we have a very, very vulnerable, northeast as such as a geographic region with Pakistan and China coming together. So I think we need to take it up as a national priority and look at all the angles so that we are not caught in napping, because frankly speaking, this has been on for last about 2 years plus, and we are only discovered once actually the blast took place. Vineet.
Mr. Mani, how are you looking at this problem? Like I said, has this shot open a gaping hole in the way we look at the security arrangements and intelligence in our country?
Thank you, Vinit. Actually, my previous speakers, both of them have covered most of the meat, especially the part relating to the new occupational group, a doctor, because hitherto it was not known, but technically qualified engineering graduates, management students have been caught into the terror as terror activists on previous occasion on several times, whether it is the Batla House, whether it is the Indian Mujahideen or other places, including doctors also. It is not a surprise. Of course, it did not happen in India, but you may recall the name of 2007 Glasgow blast, and his brother, a doctor in Australia, was deported back to India. So that part of the thing was happening, but Kashmir doctor targeted as a occupational group, especially the medical colleges, to radicalize, and then train them and to motivate them and all. This is something is a surprise packet. I do not think the intelligence were really unaware of it, because they had busted the terror module in Faridabad. They had busted another terror module of doctor in Gujarat, where ricin was trying to be mixed with the prasad and all that. So the embers were seen, but the dimension, the magnitude of the embers could not be assessed, and that is how this resulted in it. For that, new approach to intelligence has to be developed, because intelligence beyond the human and beyond the technical intelligence, now they have to go into professional colleges also in collection of intelligence. And also, as General Dwivedi pointed out, the money is the force multiplier. Money is the lifeline of terrorism. And how the money trails are coming, what is the way? We know, see, here there is a small convergence point that it is very difficult to, it is all DIA estimates are there are intelligence estimates that around 30 to 40% of the terror activities in India are financed with the drug trade by Pakistan, and a higher level of yield is more potential terror activities is a settled place. It's been happening for almost several years. But the question is, here where is that? Because new synthetic drugs are coming, and synthetic drugs, and the doctors are, like in the case of ricin also, it is very difficult to differentiate between what is a genuine drug developed over a dispensing chemist in a laboratory and what is a synthetic drug. That is one challenge. Again, the intelligence agencies have to cover. They have to also bring in a lot of technical manpower into the system. Now the technical manpower available with our agencies are basically on the electronic surveillance side, IT, mechanical, ballistics, etc., etc. But this is a new dimension. They have to bring in biochemists, biotechnologists, and maybe bioinformatics specialists, and as well as we need to recruit doctors so that the counter-terrorism, counter-intelligence is much more strengthened. That is one new dimension we have to give. Besides, the essence is, again, I say, the laundering of money, the terror funding has to be repeatedly upgraded. Where it is coming, every piece of money which is coming into India. Yeah, GPay, the digital currency, etc., has done a great thing that it is now reduced the money laundering part to a great extent. But it is not enough. We need now, because now our eyes have opened that this is not enough, and we need to be upgrading on a continuous basis. As General Dwivedi said, it is a war we are fighting. And with the Bangladesh front opening, Bangladesh has a very unique situation. We have a political dispensation which is a little at different, at variance with the national policy. In one part of in the western sector of the western border of the Bangladesh and the eastern border of the Bangladesh. They have a huge territory where they can do anything, and there are several borders which are border fencings are pending. The border surveillance parties are fencing since last 20 years. So the amount of security we have applied on the western borders, eastern borders also need to be. And the third part is from the Arunachal Pradesh, the Chinese, and the Manipur. We are having a perennial problem with Myanmar. So these are all also need to be really looked into in perspective. Repeated upgradation, accelerate the reinforcement part both in the Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir, do we see basically there are much more things. Do we really continue with the present system after abrogation of the Article 370? A lot more of private investments and should have been encouraged so that more and more people and whether it is Shere Kashmir Medical College or whether it is the Anantnag Government Medical College, what is the profile of the students studying there? It should not be lopsided, it should be more integrated. These type of policies have to be taken. The Health Ministry, the Medical Education Division has to really seat allocation. They should be very clear about it, that every seat, this local students should progressively let it be reduced, and the as a policy and more integrative people from Bihar and people from Orissa and all, the candidates should go and study in those areas instead of clustering it with the local students with a high percentage. These are all very, very important basic points. I think Dr. Sanjeev will agree with me that this is also a very important point which needs to be. So it's a holistic approach we have to take, like in a war. Everything has to be protected, including the chances of, if it's a more composite student population in Anantnag Medical College, the chances of radicalization of these type of activities, pre-radicalization activities, penetration activities become exposed earlier than what we are. The early warning signals are available much easier. Whereas if it's an entire single heterogeneous, simple or lopsided group, then the early warning signals may not be so easily accessible. So these are all, it's a holistic, large canvas we need to set our targets right, we need to set our SOPs right. And again, I said intelligence agencies should also now get into more professional, more technocrats into the system, so that like doctors, biochemists, biotechnologists and all, who can really do reverse engineering, see, they can do right from the consumption level of the chemicals produced, they can do backward engineering, reverse engineering, and give you the perspective so that the intelligence can develop upon that. So there are several large canvas which needs to be worked upon after this. Thank you, Vineet.
Right. And Dr. Bagai, what does this mean for medical establishments and institutes? They must be feeling misused and exploited. An innocuous edifice which does nothing but work towards the benefit of ailing people now finds itself going back to the drawing board.
Yeah, Vineet, I think we need to do, I'm very, very firm believer that human intelligence, along with technology, can break the backbone of this evil. We need people integrated as unknown faces into the system who can do recon work for the agencies and get the early trends of suspects screened. The cars coming in, vehicles coming in all educational institutions have to be screened. How can cars come in with ammunition? How can lockers unsupervised have assault rifles in an educational institution? It baffles me. This Al-Falal or whatever nonsense university this is, it should actually be stopped altogether. It has to be disbanded. Apart from that, there has to be random searches in the hostels. You'll see a lot of stuff happening of all kinds of unholiness in many medical and non-medical engineering or other colleges in the hostels. The faculty appointments background check has to be done. How the faculties and the colleges, be it of any particular specialty, where the funds are coming from. In the present era of digital tracking, it is not difficult. You can pick up one person and he or she will open leads for 10 more. I think this must be a very prolonged, sincere effort which is now made. I still remember what happened after the Munich massacre, and Israel tracked each and every one of those rascals down. That's what India should do. No mercy, no sympathy for people who are inhuman.
General Dwivedi, concluding thoughts from you before we end this conversation, and of course, important to understand that this is also something which has stumped us in more ways than one.
Need a de novo approach because the tactics of Pakistan are changed and they would like to make the whole movement indigenized. Here, our own people are involved. So you can't say that now it is a proxy war across from the border because most of the people involved are us. They are the actors. Handlers may be abroad. So therefore, I think one is that we need to have a very close eye on our institutions. Secondly, I don't want to name the institution, but in the hostels, you have students who keep failing and they are there for good 10, 12, 15 years. And they do everything but academics. They are the actually troublemakers. And these are the people who got to be identified. And thirdly, I quite go along with Dr. Sanjeev that we need to have a very strict, profile check, not only of the academic achievement, but the individual behavior. What is the individual mental makeup? Is he a positive influence or is he a negative influence? Therefore, we need to have a very close check on these faculties and the staff. And my last point is we need to take it as a war because it is happening in different shades, but we are taking isolation. I think we got to take a total integrated look. Let me tell you today, the threat from within is more pronounced than threat from outside. So therefore, we need to mend a house. We need to have a very strict and laws as well, because our laws are also very lenient. We need to make specimen of the people who are defaulting and bringing a bad name to the nation, and also taking toll of our own citizens. And my end point is, I think it has to be a whole nation approach. We need to address every dimension of it, both human, technical, and psychological, because that's also a very important facet, Vineet.
Fair enough, sir. Appreciate everybody who joined in and weighed in on this important debate. We'll take a short break now. Be right back.